I never imagined I would see my own daughter, Emily, furious and yelling at me like a madwoman just because I refused to give her the money from selling my farm. And I certainly never thought my older son, David, would defend her with such violence, to the point of actually breaking my rib with a shove. But what neither of them knew was that in exactly 15 minutes, they would bitterly regret ever being born, when they discovered the truth I had been waiting to reveal in silence. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is John Harrison. I am 62 years old, and all my life I have been a simple, hard-working man. One of those who wakes up every day at 5 in the morning to make coffee and think about everything that needs to be done. I live in a modest house on the outskirts of a small town in rural Texas, with my small garden where I grow tomatoes and herbs, and where every morning I greet my chickens before feeding them. My routine has been the same for years. Black coffee without sugar, toast with butter, and then I sit on the porch to watch the sunrise while planning my day. I have been a widower for 7 years. My wife, Eleanor, died of a sudden heart attack, leaving me alone with a farm we had inherited from her parents, but which was in terrible condition. It was a large property, almost 60 acres, but it needed a lot of work and money to become productive again. During all these years, while my children David and Emily lived their lives in the city, I managed as best I could to support myself. I worked doing handyman jobs, selling homemade food at farmers markets on weekends, and even babysitting neighbors' kids to pay my basic bills. I never asked my children for financial help, as I knew they had their own responsibilities. Besides, I have always been a proud man, one of those who prefers to solve his own problems before being a burden to someone. The farm had become a constant worry. The roofs leaked, the fences were falling down, and the vegetation had grown so much it looked like abandoned wilderness. Several neighbors suggested I sell it, but I always refused, feeling I would be betraying Eleanor's memory. That land had been her family's dream for generations, and getting rid of it felt like tearing out a piece of my heart. But 5 months ago, everything changed. I received an unexpected visit from a very well-dressed man in a gray suit and red tie who introduced himself as a representative of a development company. He explained they were interested in buying my farm to develop a housing project, and when he mentioned the amount they were willing to pay, I almost fainted right there. $500,000. Never in my life had I heard such a large sum of money being directed at me. The man said the location of my property was perfect for building a modern subdivision, and they were willing to pay that price without haggling as long as I signed the papers in the coming weeks. For days, I could not sleep thinking about the offer. I would get up before dawn and walk around the farm, remembering all the happy moments I had lived there with Eleanor, but also thinking about all the possibilities that money would bring to my life. I could completely renovate my little house, buy new clothes, travel to see my grandchildren who lived far away, and above all, have the financial security I had never had in my 62 years. Finally, after much reflection, and even dreaming of Eleanor asking me to be happy, I made the hardest decision of my life. I sold the farm. The paperwork was surprisingly quick, and in less than a month, I had an amount in my bank account that I never thought I would possess. The first thing I did after receiving the money was remain in absolute silence. I did not tell anyone, not even my neighbor Margaret, who had always been like a sister to me and knew all my secrets. Something inside me said I should keep this information secret until I decided exactly what to do with such a fortune. I kept the sale documents in a metal box under my bed, along with the few pieces of jewelry my mother had left me. During the first 3 weeks after the sale, my life continued exactly the same. I would wake up at 5, make my coffee, feed my chickens, and follow my routine as always. The only difference was that now when I sat on the porch in the afternoon, a secret smile would appear on my face, thinking about all the wonderful things I could do with that money. I had begun making a mental list of priorities. First, I wanted to completely renovate my house, replace the leaking roof, paint the faded walls, install a new bathroom since mine was over 15 years old, and buy a modern stove to replace the old one that sometimes would not light properly. I also thought about buying a used pickup truck, but in good condition, because I was tired of depending on public transportation to get to town. But above all, there was something very special I wanted to do with that money, something I had been secretly planning and knew would change many people's lives. However, it was not time to reveal it yet. Not even out loud did I dare say it, as I feared emotion would betray me. Everything changed on a Thursday afternoon. While I was watering my tomato plants, I heard a car engine approaching down the dirt road that led to my house. And when I looked up, I saw my daughter Emily's white car parking in front of my door. I found it strange to see her on a weekday, as she worked at an office in the city and normally only visited me on Sundays. Emily got out of the car with a strange smile, one of those smiles I knew very well, as I had seen them since she was a child. It was the smile she made when she wanted to ask me for something important, or when she had gotten into some mischief. She wore a yellow dress I had never seen, high heels that sank into the dirt of my yard, and a large purse hanging from her arm. "Dad, what a nice surprise to find you out here," she said, approaching to give me a kiss on the cheek. "I need to talk to you about something very important." I invited her in and prepared a glass of fresh ice water. We sat in my small living room, her on the couch, and me in my favorite chair, the wooden rocking chair that had been my grandmother's. Emily seemed nervous, playing with the car keys and avoiding looking me in the eyes. "Dad," she began with a soft voice. "Yesterday, I was talking to Julia, who lives near where your farm used to be, and she told me something that surprised me a lot." My heart started beating faster. I knew exactly where that conversation was heading, and a feeling of alarm grew in my chest. Julia was the biggest gossip in the area and had evidently seen all the development company's activity on my property. "She told me you sold the farm." "Dad, is that true?" Emily now stared at me fixedly with that expression she made as a teenager when she interrogated me about whether I had found something suspicious in her room. I could not deny the truth to my own daughter, especially when it was obvious she already knew. So, I nodded slowly. "Yes, Emily, I sold the farm a few weeks ago." My daughter's eyes lit up in a way I had never seen, as if she had won the lottery. "Oh, Dad, what wonderful news. And for how much did you sell it? Surely for a good amount." "Right." Something in her tone made me very uncomfortable. It was not the reaction I expected from a daughter concerned about her father. She did not ask how I felt about selling her mother's land, or if it had been difficult to make the decision, or if I needed emotional support. She just wanted to know how much money I had received. "It was a fair sale," I responded cautiously, without giving specific details about the amount. Emily leaned forward, getting closer to me. "Dad, you know you can trust me. I am your daughter, and I care a lot about your future. I imagine it must have been a considerable amount, and I want to make sure you are making the best decisions for your financial security." Her words sounded nice, but there was something in her attitude that I did not like at all. It was as if I were talking to a saleswoman trying to convince me to buy something, not with my daughter who truly cared about my well-being. "Emily, I appreciate your concern, but I am perfectly capable of handling my own financial affairs. Of course, Dad. I did not mean to say you were not capable. Her voice softened, but I could notice a touch of frustration. It is just that, well, Robert and I are going through some financial problems lately. The business is not going as well as we expected, and I thought maybe there was the real reason for her unscheduled visit. She had not come to see me because she cared about me or wanted to spend time with her father. She had come because she discovered I had money and wanted to share. Maybe. What? Emily, I asked, though I already knew perfectly well what she would say. Maybe you could help us a little bit. Dad, I am not asking for charity. It is just a temporary loan until the business stabilizes. You could lend us like $25,000 or $35,000, and I promise we will pay you back with interest as soon as we can. I remained silent for several seconds, looking at my daughter's face and trying to process what I just heard. $25,000 or $35,000 was not a small amount. And the casual way she had asked left me completely bewildered. It was as if she were asking to borrow $10 for bread and not a fortune that represented years of my working life. Emily, I said with a firm voice, that money from the sale of the farm is not for lending to anyone. I have my own plans for it. The expression on her face changed immediately. The sweet smile disappeared and was replaced by a grimace of disapproval that painfully reminded me of when she was a spoiled child who could not get what she wanted. What plans? Dad, what are you going to do with so much money at your age? It is not like you are going to buy a new house or travel the world. It would be much smarter to invest that money in something productive like Robert and my business. Her words hurt me deeply. At my age, I repeated, feeling as if I had been slapped. You are telling me that because I am 62 years old, I no longer have the right to enjoy my own money. No, Dad, that is not what I meant. She hurried to answer, but I could see in her eyes that it was exactly what she meant. It is just that, well, it would be more practical if the money were used for something that would benefit the whole family. The whole family, I murmured, feeling indignation grow in my chest. And when did the whole family help me? When I was struggling alone to support myself after your mother died? When did the whole family care to know if I had enough money to buy food or medicine? Emily turned red as a pepper. Dad, we did not know you were having difficulties. If you had asked for help, you did not know I interrupted, getting up from my rocking chair. You did not know I was doing handyman work at 60 years old. You did not know I sold food at farmers' markets on weekends to pay the electricity bill. You did not know I woke up at 4 in the morning to go babysit because I needed every penny I could earn. My daughter looked down, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. Dad, I understand you went through difficult times, but now things are different. Now you have money and we really need help. And why do you need help? I asked, crossing my arms. The last time we talked, you told me the business was going very well, that you had gotten several new clients. Emily squirmed on the couch, obviously uncomfortable having to admit the truth. Well, it is that Robert made some investments that did not turn out as we expected. And then we had some unexpected expenses. What kind of unexpected expenses? Emily, we bought a new car, renovated the house, and Robert invested in some stocks that, well, we lost quite a bit of money. I could not believe what I was hearing. My daughter and her husband had squandered money on luxuries and bad investments. And now they wanted me to bail them out with the money I had earned selling the property I had fought for years. So, you spent money irresponsibly, and now you want me to pay for the consequences of your bad decisions, I said, feeling anger begin to boil in my veins. It is not like that, Dad. We just need a small loan to stabilize ourselves again. It is an investment in your family's future. My family, I repeated bitterly. Where was my family when I needed help? Where was my family when my knees hurt so much from cleaning floors that I could barely walk at night? Where was my family when I had to choose between buying medicine or buying food? Emily stood up abruptly, and I could see her patience was running out. Okay, Dad, we understand you are resentful, but you cannot punish us forever for past mistakes. I am not punishing you, Emily. I am simply protecting something that is rightfully mine. But that money came from Mom's farm. That property was also our inheritance. Her words hit me like lightning. Your inheritance, I shouted, feeling all my composure drain away. Your inheritance, that farm was abandoned for years while I was dying trying to maintain it. You never lifted a finger to help with expenses, with maintenance, with anything. And now that I have turned it into money, with my effort and my decision, it has become your inheritance. Inheritance is inheritance. Dad. It does not matter if you sold it or not. At that moment, I heard another car engine approaching. Through the window, I saw my son David's black pickup parking next to Emily's car. My heart froze as I knew this visit was no coincidence. Evidently, Emily had planned everything in advance. David entered the house without even knocking on the door, as if it were his house. He is a tall, stocky man, 38 years old with a scruffy beard and always dressed in old t-shirts and ripped jeans. He had gained a lot of weight in recent years and had that tired look of someone who drinks more than they should. "Hi, Dad," he said with a forced smile. "Emily told me the good news about the sale of the farm." "Of course she did," I murmured, sitting back in the rocking chair, feeling my legs tremble with pure indignation. David sat heavily on the couch next to his sister, and I immediately smelled beer on his breath. It was only 4 in the afternoon, and he was already drinking. "Dad," Emily explained the situation to me. He said with that hoarse voice he made when trying to seem serious, "I think we should talk as a family about how to best manage this money." "There is nothing to talk about, David. The money is mine, and I will decide what to do with it." "Dad, be reasonable," Emily intervened. "We are not asking you to give us everything as a gift. We just want you to help us a little. David also has financial problems." I looked at my older son, this 38-year-old man who had never managed to keep a job for more than 7 months straight. "And what are your financial problems, David?" He shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "Well, I am behind on some house payments and I have some pending debts." "What kind of debts?" "That does not matter, Dad. What is important is that we are family and families help each other." "Families help each other," I repeated slowly. "How interesting you say that now after 7 years when I practically did not exist for you." The two siblings exchanged glances with that complicity I knew very well since they were children. It was the same look they exchanged when they had broken something at home and were deciding what lie to tell me. But now they were adults, and that look gave me much more fear than when they were 9 and 11 years old. "Dad," said David, leaning forward, "I think you are being a little unfair. We have always been here for you. Always been here." I laughed bitterly. "David, when was the last time you visited me without needing something? When was the last time you called just to ask how I was?" "Dad, you know I work a lot." "Work a lot," I interrupted. "You can barely keep a job for more than a few months. And when you do have work, you spend everything on beer and those slot machines at the bar." David's face turned red as a pepper. "That is not true. I do not have a problem with gambling. Please, David, the whole town knows you owe money at 3 different bars. Last week, Robert's wife told me you borrowed $600 for an emergency. And Samuel said he saw you spending it all on slot machines. Emily quickly intervened, trying to calm the situation. Dad, it does not matter what happened before. What is important is the present. And in the present, we are a family that needs to help each other. A family. I stood up again, feeling all the frustration accumulated over years beginning to surface. A family that only shows up when there is money involved. A family that completely ignored me for 7 years while I struggled alone to survive. We did not ignore you, Emily shouted, finally losing her composure. We had our own responsibilities. We could not be taking care of you all the time. Of course you could not, I responded sarcastically. You were too busy spending money on new cars and home renovations while I worked cleaning other people's bathrooms so I could eat. David stood up, and his bulky size suddenly intimidated me. When he got angry, his voice got very deep and his eyes turned red. Dad, stop playing the victim. If you had financial problems, you should have told us. Playing the victim. I could not believe what I was hearing. David, you knew perfectly well what my situation was. You knew I lived alone, that I was a widower, that I had no fixed income. But you were so busy with your own lives that you never bothered to ask if I needed help. Because you were always too proud, Emily shouted. You always said you could manage on your own. Because I had no other choice, because my own children abandoned me. The atmosphere in the small living room had become so tense that I found it hard to breathe. David began pacing back and forth like a caged animal, while Emily looked at me with an expression of pure frustration. Okay, Dad, said David, stopping in front of me. Let's suppose you are right, and we were terrible children. Does that mean you are going to punish us forever? Does that mean you will never forgive us? It is not about punishment or forgiveness. David, it is that I have plans for this money, and those plans do not include bailing you out of your own irresponsibilities. What plans? Emily asked with a shrill voice. You never do anything exciting, never spend money on yourself. What are you going to do? Keep it under the mattress until you die. Her words hurt me deeply, but they also gave me a fury I had not felt in years. You want to know what my plans are? I shouted. My plans are to never have to worry about money again. My plans are to be able to go to the doctor when I feel sick without having to calculate if I can pay for the consultation. My plans are to be able to buy the food I want without having to check every penny. That is exactly what we are saying, exclaimed David. You already have all that guaranteed. You have more money than you could spend in the time you have left. So it would be smart to share a little with your family. The time I have left, I repeated, feeling tears burn my eyes. So now I am so old that it is no longer worth me enjoying my own money. That is not it. Dad, Emily approached me with her arms extended as if she were going to hug me, but I backed away. It is just that, well, at your age, what can you really need at that moment? Something broke inside me. All the emotional wounds I had been keeping for years, all the pain, loneliness, all the abandonment, all the silent struggle came out suddenly like an erupting volcano. Get out! I shouted with a voice I did not even recognize myself. Get out of my house right now. Dad, calm down. David tried to approach, but I grabbed the broom that was in the corner and raised it as if it were a weapon. Do not come near me. Get out, I do not want to see you again until you learn to respect me." "You are acting like the crazy person," Emily shouted. "We just want to help you make smart decisions. Help me." I laughed hysterically. 7 years without helping me, and now you want to help me. The only help you want is to help yourselves to my money. David became more aggressive, approaching me dangerously. "Dad, you are going to give us that money because we have a right to it. That farm was Mom's, and we are her children. That farm I maintained alone for 7 years. I paid the taxes. I worried about it. You never did anything. It does not matter. Inheritance is inheritance." Emily was also aggressive. "There is no inheritance," I shouted. "The farm does not exist anymore. I sold it, and the money is mine." At that moment, David did something I never thought he would do. He got so close to me that I could smell the beer on his breath, and with a threatening voice told me, "Dad, you are going to give us that money. We are your children, and we have a right to it. If you do not give it to us willingly, we will have to find other ways." "Are you threatening me?" "David," I asked, though my voice trembled with fear. "I am not threatening. Dad, I am explaining reality. That money should be for the whole family. And if you do not understand, we will have to make you understand." Emily nodded, completely supporting her brother. At that moment, I realized my own children had transformed into dangerous strangers, people capable of anything for money. "Get out," I said with a low but firm voice. "Get out of my house right now, and do not come back until you are willing to apologize for everything you have said to me today." The two headed to the door, but not with the defeated attitude I expected. Instead, they walked slowly, exchanging glances that gave me chills. Before leaving, David turned to me with an expression I had never seen on his face, a mixture of anger and determination that froze my blood. "This is not going to stay like this, Dad," he told me with a low, threatening voice. "You are going to reconsider your decision, because we are not going to sit idly by while you keep all our money." "It is not your money," I responded, trying to sound braver than I felt. "And if you come back to my house with this attitude, I will call the police." Emily let out a sarcastic laugh. "The police, why, for coming to visit our own father?" "Dad, I think loneliness is affecting your mind. Maybe you should see a doctor." Her words hit me like daggers. "Are you calling me crazy?" "I am not saying you are crazy," Emily responded with false sweetness. "But you are making very strange decisions for a person your age. Maybe you need help managing so much money. Maybe someone else needs to make those decisions for you." The fear I felt at that moment was different from anything I had experienced before. It was not just physical fear, but a deep terror that my own children were capable of hurting me in ways I could not even imagine. "Go away," I said, but my voice sounded weak and broken. "Please go away and leave me alone." "We are going, Dad," said David, "but we will be back. And next time I hope you have reflected on your selfishness." After they left, I sat in my rocking chair for hours, trembling, not from cold, but from shock. I could not believe the children I had raised, to whom I had given all my love in my life, had become such cruel and greedy people. I felt as if I had met two dangerous strangers and not my own children. That night, I could not sleep. Every noise I heard made me jump, thinking maybe they had come back. I got up several times to check that all the doors and windows were properly locked, something I had never done before in my life, as I had always felt safe in my own home. The next day, I tried to follow my normal routine, But everything had changed. When I went to feed my chickens, my hands trembled so much that I spilled half the corn on the ground. When I tried to water my plants, I could not concentrate and ended up soaking the soil more than necessary. Near noon, I received a phone call that almost stopped my heart. It was Emily, but her voice sounded completely different from the day before. Now she spoke in a sweet, concerned tone, as if nothing bad had happened between us. "Dad," she said, "I hope you slept well last night. I was thinking a lot about our conversation yesterday, and I think maybe both sides said things we regret." "Emily, I do not regret anything I said yesterday." "Oh, Dad, do not be like that. You know, we love you very much, and the last thing we would want is to make you feel bad. Maybe we could find a solution that works for everyone." Her change in attitude made me even more nervous than her aggressiveness the day before. At least when she was angry, I knew what I was dealing with. This new manipulative version of my daughter scared me much more. There is nothing to negotiate. "Emily, my decision is final. Dad, why do not we meet again? But this time in a more relaxed environment, we could have lunch at the Texas Grill downtown. Just you and me, like father and daughter. No pressure, no arguments, just a civilized conversation. I do not want to have any more conversation about this subject. Dad, please just give me a chance to better explain our situation. Maybe yesterday I did not express myself correctly. Maybe if you listen to me more calmly, you could understand why we need your help." Something in her tone made me suspect ulterior motives. But a part of me wanted to believe that maybe she really had realized her mistake and wanted to genuinely apologize. "All right," I finally said, "but let it be clear that I am not going to change my mind about the money." "Of course. Dad, I just want us to have a father-daughter conversation." We agreed to meet the next day at the Texas Grill restaurant, a small but cozy place downtown that served the best home cooking in the region. It was a public place with lots of people where I would feel safe. That night, I slept badly again with strange nightmares where David and Emily chased me through the house demanding money. In one of the dreams, they had brought lawyers and police to force me to hand over everything, saying I was too old to make my own decisions. The next day, I dressed with special care. I wore my favorite blue shirt, the one my late wife Eleanor gave me for my 50th birthday, and combed my hair the way I liked best. I wanted to look dignified and respectable, like the strong man I had been all my life. I arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes before the appointed time and asked for a table by the window where I could see the street. Emily arrived exactly on time, but she did not come alone. Robert accompanied her, and that immediately put me on maximum alert. Robert is a man of about 45, thin, with a black mustache, and always wears shirts that seem too elegant for his personality. From the day I met him, something about him seemed fake to me, as if he were acting all the time. He had that smile that never reached his eyes and that way of talking that sounded like he was constantly trying to sell you something. "Hello, father-in-law," he said with that fake smile, giving me a kiss on the cheek that made me shudder. "What a pleasure to see you. I hope you do not mind my coming." Emily thought it would be good for me to participate in this family conversation, too. "Actually, I do mind." I responded directly because this was a conversation between my daughter and me. Emily hurried to intervene. "Dad, Robert is part of the family. Besides, he understands a lot about finances and business, and I thought maybe he could help us find a solution that benefits everyone." "I already said there is nothing to negotiate." Robert leaned forward with that expression he made when he thought he was being very clever. "Father-in-law, Allow me to explain something about family finances. When a family has significant resources, the smartest thing is to distribute those resources strategically to maximize the benefit of all members. Robert, with all due respect, my finances are not your problem, but they are my problem. Father-in-law, because I am your daughter's husband. What affects Emily affects me, and what affects us affects our children, your grandchildren. The mention of my grandchildren especially bothered me, as I knew he was using them as a manipulation tool. My grandchildren are perfectly well cared for, and if you have financial problems, that is your responsibility, not mine. Father-in-law. Robert lowered his voice as if he were going to tell me a secret. Let me be completely honest with you. We are in a very difficult situation. If we do not get money soon, we could lose the house. Do you really want your grandchildren to be homeless? Emily nodded dramatically, as if she were acting in a soap opera. It is true, Dad. The children do not understand why suddenly we cannot buy what they need. Yesterday, my little one asked why she could not have piano lessons anymore, and I did not know what to say. Their attempts at emotional manipulation disgusted me. Emily, if your children need something, you can talk to me specifically about those needs, but I am not going to give you thousands of dollars so you and your husband can continue living beyond your means. Robert changed strategy, adopting a more aggressive tone. Father-in-law, I do not think you understand the seriousness of the situation. This is not just a request for help. We have legal rights to this inheritance. Legal rights, I laughed bitterly. What legal rights? I sold my property, a property that was in my name and the money is in my bank account. The property was your wife's inheritance, and according to the law, children have rights to paternal inheritances. Robert, you clearly do not know anything about laws. When my wife died, that property legally became mine. I paid the taxes for 7 years. I kept the documents up to date. I took care of everything. Legally, that farm was completely mine. Robert became visibly uncomfortable, realizing he had no valid legal argument. His face flushed, and he began nervously drumming his fingers on the table. Emily, for her part, had adopted that victim expression she had perfected since adolescence. Dad, said Emily with a choked voice as if she were about to cry, I cannot believe you are so cruel to your own family. Are you really going to let your grandchildren suffer because of your selfishness? I am not cruel. Emily, I am a man who finally learned to value himself after years of being ignored by his own children. Robert intervened with a smile that gave me chills. Father-in-law, maybe we should approach this from another perspective. A man your age living alone with so much money. Does not that seem dangerous? There are many criminals who specialize in robbing elderly people who have considerable savings. His words sounded like a thinly veiled threat. Are you threatening me? Robert, of course not. Father-in-law, I am just concerned about your safety. It would be terrible if something bad happened to you, especially now that you have so much money. The waiter approached to take our order, but I had completely lost my appetite. The conversation had taken a turn that terrified me, and I realized my own relatives were capable of intimidating me in ways I had never imagined. I am not ordering anything. I told the waiter, I am leaving right now. Dad, please do not go, Emily begged, grabbing my arm as I stood up. We have not finished talking. Yes, we have, I replied, pulling my arm from her grip. And let it be very clear, I am not going to give you a single cent of my money, no matter how much you threaten or manipulate me. We are not threatening you, Emily shouted loud enough for other people in the restaurant to turn to look at us. We just want you to be reasonable. Being reasonable would mean giving my money for you to continue living irresponsibly, I said, feeling anger boil in my veins again. But I am not going to be reasonable that way. I left the restaurant as quickly as I could, but managed to hear Robert saying to Emily, "Do not worry, my love. There are other ways to solve this problem." On the way home, my hands were shaking so much I could barely hold on to the bus rail. Robert's words echoed in my head like an alarm. There are other ways to solve this problem. What did he mean by that? That night, I called my neighbor Margaret, the only person in the world I really trusted. Margaret was 75 years old, had been a widow longer than me, and had always been like an older sister. I told her everything that had happened, from the sale of the farm to Robert's veiled threats. "John," Margaret said with a serious voice, "your children have become dangerous. You cannot stay alone at home while they are acting like this. What do you suggest I do?" Margaret, hide from my own children. Not hide, but protect yourself. Have you thought about talking to the police and tell them my children asked me for money and I refused? I have not suffered any physical harm yet. John, that word yet scares me a lot. I think you should stay at my house for a few days until things calm down. That night, I stayed at Margaret's house, but I could not sleep at all. Every noise made me jump, thinking maybe David and Emily had come looking for me. Around 2 in the morning, Margaret got up to get water and found me awake looking out the window. "John, you have to tell me the truth," she said, sitting next to me. "What do you really need that money for? Because I know your personality very well, and I know you are not keeping it out of pure greed." For the first time since I sold the farm, I told someone what my true plans for the money were. Margaret listened in silence, and when I finished speaking, she had tears in her eyes. "Oh, John," she said, hugging me, "you are an incredible man. Your children do not even deserve to know the truth about what you plan to do." The next day, I went back home because I could not hide forever. But as soon as I arrived, I noticed something was very wrong. The front door had marks around the lock, as if someone had tried to break in. Some of my plants were trampled, and there were large boot prints in the dirt of my garden. Inside the house, although nothing had been stolen, everything had been slightly moved. My drawers were ajar, my papers had been rifled through, and the metal box where I kept the sale documents had been moved from its hiding place under the bed. My heart was beating so hard, I thought I would have a heart attack. Someone had entered my house while I was away, and it was not hard to guess who it had been. David had had the house keys for years for emergencies, and had evidently decided to use them to look for information about my money. I immediately called to change the locks, but the locksmith told me he could only come the next day. That night, I barricaded myself in my room, putting a chair under the door handle and sleeping with a kitchen knife under my pillow. The next morning, while waiting for the locksmith, I received an unexpected visit. It was Samuel, a second cousin of my late wife, a man of about 55 who worked as a mechanic in town. Samuel had always been a quiet, honest person, and I found it very strange to see him at my house so early. "Cousin John," he told me with a worried face, "I need to talk to you about something very serious." "What kind of conversation?" "Samuel, your son David was there very drunk talking to some men I did not like at all. They were making plans that involve you." My stomach clenched with fear. "What kind of plans?" "They were talking about ways to force you to hand over the money. They mentioned something about signing papers, and one of the men said he knew someone who could forge medical documents to declare you mentally incompetent." The world collapsed on me. Declare me crazy, yes, cousin. They were saying that if they could get a medical report saying you have dementia or some mental problem, they could get a judge to give them legal control over your money. My worst nightmares were coming true. My own son was conspiring with strangers to steal not only my money, but also my dignity and my freedom. Samuel, are you sure about what you heard? Completely sure, cousin. That is why I came to warn you so early. I think you have to take steps to protect yourself, and you have to do it now. At that moment, the locksmith arrived, and while he changed my locks, I called a lawyer Margaret had recommended. I explained the whole situation, and he told me to go to his office immediately with all the documents from the sale of the farm. Mr. Harrison, said the lawyer after reviewing all my papers, you are in a very dangerous situation, but you are also in a very strong legal position. Everything is perfectly in order with the sale of your property, and no one can touch that money without your consent. However, if they are really planning to declare you incompetent, we need to act quickly to protect you. What can I do? First, we will get an independent medical evaluation that certifies you are completely sane and capable. Second, we will prepare legal documents that protect your assets. And third, if necessary, we will get a restraining order against your children. That day was one of the longest of my life. Between doctors, lawyers, and legal procedures, I realized my quiet life had turned into a nightmare. But I also realized something else. For the first time in years, I was fighting for something that really mattered to me. And that fight was giving me a strength I did not know I had. The next day, while returning from the pharmacy after buying some nerve medication the doctor had prescribed, I saw David's black pickup parked in front of my house. But this time, he was not alone. There was another car I did not recognize, a gray sedan with two men inside who seemed to be waiting for something. My heart started beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I remembered Samuel's words about the strange men David had talked to at the bar, and I immediately knew it must be them. I hid behind the oak tree on the corner of my property and took out my cell phone to call Margaret. "Margaret," I whispered, "I am hiding near my house. David is here with men I do not know, and I think they are planning to do something terrible to me." "Where are you exactly?" Margaret asked with an alarmed voice. "Behind the oak tree. But I cannot stay here forever. John, call the police right now. And what do I say that my son is visiting my house? Say you feel threatened and need help. Meanwhile, I am coming over there." I hung up the phone and dialed the emergency number. But before I could speak to anyone, I heard David's voice shouting my name in my yard. "Dad, I know you are around here. We just want to talk to you. Do not be ridiculous and come out of wherever you are hiding." The tone of his voice did not sound like someone who just wanted to talk. It sounded like someone who was losing patience. Quickly, one of the men from the gray sedan got out of the car, and I could see him clearly for the first time. He was a tall guy with tattooed arms and an unfriendly face. He wore a tight black t-shirt that showed he worked out regularly and walked with that aggressive attitude of someone used to intimidating people. "Are you sure he is here?" the man asked David. "He has to be here. His neighbor told me she saw him come back an hour ago." The second man also got out of the car. He was shorter but stockier with a beer belly and a scar that crossed his left cheek from ear to mouth. He wore a baseball cap and ripped jeans and had that way of moving that reminded me of the criminals who appeared on the news. "Look, David," said the man with the scar. "We do not have all day. If your father does not want to cooperate willingly, we will have to use other methods to convince him." "Give me a few more minutes," David responded, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. He has to show up. At that moment, Emily arrived in her white car, parking quickly and getting out looking furious. She wore a purple dress I had never seen, and high heels that clearly were not appropriate for walking on the dirt of my yard. "Have you found him yet?" she asked the man without even greeting her brother. "No, but we know he is around here," responded the man with tattoos. "This is ridiculous," Emily shouted, heading toward my house. "Dad, I know you can hear me. Stop behaving like a child and come out to talk to us." From my hiding place behind the oak tree, I could see the three men and Emily moving around my property as if it were theirs. David searched behind the bushes. Emily looked through the windows of the house, and the two strangers walked around as if they were evaluating the terrain. "Are you sure he cannot be inside the house?" asked the man with the scar to Emily. "Impossible. He changed the locks yesterday, and we do not have the new keys." "That is not a problem," said the man with tattoos with a smile that terrified me. "I can open any door in less than 4 minutes." "No!" David shouted. "We cannot break in. That would be breaking and entering." "And what do you suggest then?" Emily asked impatiently. "We cannot stay here all day waiting for him to show up." At that moment, I heard the sound of sirens approaching, and my heart jumped with relief. Evidently, when I dialed the emergency number, the call had been connected, even though I had hung up, and they had sent someone to investigate. The 4 conspirators also heard the sirens and immediately panicked. "Shit!" shouted the man with the scar. "Someone called the police." "Let's get out of here right now," said the one with tattoos, running to the car. "Wait!" David shouted. "We cannot leave like this. It will look very suspicious." But the 2 men had already gotten into the gray sedan and were starting the engine. They sped off my property, raising a cloud of dust just as the police patrol car turned the corner. Emily and David stood there trying to act as if nothing strange had happened, but I could see the panic on their faces. 2 police officers got out of the patrol car and approached my children. One of them was young, probably 28 years old, and the other was older, with the face of someone who had seen a lot in his career. "Good afternoon," said the older officer. "We received an emergency call from this phone number, but the communication was cut off. Is everything okay here?" David managed to force a fake smile. "Yes, officer. Everything is fine. We were just visiting our father." "And where is your father?" asked the young officer. Looking around, Emily quickly intervened. "He must be in town shopping. We arrived and he was not here, so we decided to wait for him." "And the men we just saw leave in the gray car?" asked the older officer suspiciously. "What men?" David lied shamelessly. "We do not know what you are talking about." At that moment, I decided to come out of my hiding place. I could not allow my children to continue lying to the police, and I realized it was safer to face the situation with the officers present. "Officers!" I shouted, walking toward them. I was the one who called. Everyone turned to look at me. David and Emily had faces of pure terror, while the officers looked confused. "Are you the owner of this house?" asked the older officer. "Yes, I am John Harrison, and these are my children." "But officers, they came here with 2 men who scare me a lot, and I had to hide because I feel threatened." "Dad, that is not true," Emily shouted. "We just came to visit you." "Why did you hide from your own children?" asked the young officer. I briefly explained the situation: the sale of the farm, the aggressive demands for money, the veiled threats, and the plans they were making to declare me mentally incompetent. The officers listened carefully, especially when I mentioned the strange men who were with my children. "Mr. Harrison," said the older officer, "do you have any evidence of these threats? My cousin Samuel heard them talking at the bar last night." He can confirm it. David became very aggressive. This is all lies. Our father is making up stories because he does not want to give us the money that is legally ours. What money? Asked the young officer. The money from the sale of a farm that was our mother's inheritance. Emily responded. He sold it without consulting us, and now refuses to share the money with the family. That farm was mine, I said firmly. I paid the taxes. I maintained it, and I had every legal right to sell it. The older officer looked at me with understanding. Mr. Harrison, do you want to file a formal complaint against your children? Before I could answer, David exploded with fury. This is ridiculous, he shouted, approaching me dangerously. That money is ours by right, and if you do not understand willingly, we will make you understand by force. Sir, step away from the gentleman, ordered the young officer, placing himself between David and me. But David had completely lost control. All the frustration and anger he had been accumulating for days came out suddenly, and he lunged at me with clenched fists. He pushed the young officer who was trying to stop him. What happened next was very fast. David managed to dodge the two officers and advanced on me with such fury that I had no time to move away. His shove was so violent that it threw me backward, and I fell heavily on the stones of my garden. The pain I felt in my left side was indescribable, as if they had stuck a knife in me and were twisting it. I screamed in agony while the officers struggled with David to handcuff him. Emily turned completely pale when she realized what her brother had done. David, have you gone crazy? From the ground with unbearable pain running through my side, I could see the horror on Emily's face while the officers handcuffed David. My older son was struggling like a wild animal, shouting obscenities and threats while the officers held him. Let me go. That crazy old man is stealing our money. He kept shouting with saliva running from the corner of his mouth. The older officer immediately called an ambulance on the radio, while the younger one kept David under control. Emily approached me, but when she tried to help me up, I screamed in pain. Do not touch me. Get away from me, I said, feeling tears run down my face, not just from physical pain, but from emotional betrayal. Dad, please let me help, Emily begged with a broken voice. David did not mean to hurt you. He just lost control. Did not mean to hurt me, I repeated incredulously. Your brother just broke my ribs, and you tell me he did not mean to hurt me. The paramedics arrived in less than 12 minutes, and while they examined me to determine the severity of my injuries, I could hear the older officer interrogating Emily about the men who had fled when the sirens arrived. Miss, I need you to tell me exactly who those men were and what they were doing here, Emily stammered, clearly nervous. I do not know them very well. They are friends of my brother. Friends who fled when we arrived. Does not that seem suspicious to you, officer? I did not know they were coming. David did not tell me anything about bringing anyone else. One of the paramedics, a man of about 45 with very gentle hands, was examining my side very carefully. Mr. Harrison, you definitely have at least one fractured rib, possibly two. We need to take you to the hospital immediately for x-rays. While they put me on the stretcher, I could see David being put in the patrol car. For a moment, our eyes met, and for the first time since this whole nightmare had begun, I saw something like regret in his eyes. Dad! He shouted from the car. I did not want this to happen. I just wanted... It is too late. David! I shouted back, feeling all the emotional pain of years turn into words. It is too late to be sorry. At the hospital, while they did x-rays and tests, Margaret arrived completely agitated. The poor woman had run so much she could barely breathe. Oh, John, how do you feel? Does it hurt a lot? It hurts more in my soul than in my body. Margaret, I cannot believe my own son did this to me. And Emily, where is she? I do not know, nor do I care. She was an accomplice to all of this. The doctor, a young doctor with a kind face, came to explain the test results. Mr. Harrison, you have 2 fractured ribs on the left side. It is not a life-threatening injury, but it will be very painful for the next few weeks. You need absolute rest and pain medication. Doctor, how long will I be like this? Ribs take between 5 and 7 weeks to heal completely. During that time, you cannot do physical exertion, cannot carry weight, and have to be very careful when moving. While the doctor explained the care instructions, the older officer arrived with a notebook in hand. Mr. Harrison, I need to take a formal statement about what happened. Do you feel well enough to talk? Yes, officer. I want everything officially recorded. I told the whole story from the beginning. The sale of the farm, the first demands for money, the escalating threats, the conspiracy to declare me mentally incompetent, and finally, the physical attack. Mr. Harrison, this is very serious. Your son is under arrest for assault on an elderly person, which is a serious crime. Do you want to file a formal complaint? The question hit me like a bucket of cold water. It was one thing to be angry with David, and another very different was to send him to jail. But when I thought about everything that had happened, about all the threats, about all the malicious plans, I realized I had no other choice. Yes, officer, I want to file a complaint, not just for the physical attack, but for all the threats and intimidation. The officer nodded and continued taking notes. We are also going to investigate those men who were with him. Their description matches some known local delinquents. That night, I stayed in the hospital for observation, and Margaret stayed with me. Around 9 in the evening, I received a phone call I was not expecting. It was Emily, and from her voice, I could tell she had been crying. Dad, she said with a choked voice, I need to talk to you, please. I have nothing to talk to you about. Emily, Dad, please. David is in jail, and all of this has gotten completely out of control. I never wanted you to get physically hurt, but you wanted me to get emotionally hurt. You wanted them to steal my money. You wanted them to declare me crazy. I did not know about declaring you crazy. Dad, that was Robert's idea and those horrible men's. And why did you not defend me? Why did you not protect me when you knew they were planning to hurt me? Emily was silent for several seconds. Because we needed the money. Dad, we are in a very desperate situation. Well, now you are in an even more desperate situation. Your brother is going to jail, and you will have to face the legal consequences of your actions. Dad, please do not let David go to jail. He has problems with alcohol and gambling, but he is not a bad person. He just needs help. Emily, your brother broke 2 of my ribs. He physically assaulted me in front of the police. That is not something that can be forgiven with a simple apology. What if we return all the money we asked for? What if we promise never to bother you again? What money are you going to return if you never gave me a single cent? And how are you going to promise you will not bother me if you just demonstrated you are capable of anything? The next day, when I was discharged from the hospital, my lawyer came to visit me at Margaret's house where I would stay during my recovery. Mr. Harrison, said the lawyer, I have important news. The police arrested the 2 men who were with your son. It turns out they have criminal records for fraud and extortion. One of them confessed that your son had contacted them to help intimidate you. And what is going to happen now that your son will face very serious charges? Assault on an elderly person, conspiracy to commit fraud, and intimidation. He could get several years in jail. The news left me with very conflicting feelings. On one hand, I was happy that justice was working, but on the other, the idea that my own son would spend years in jail broke my heart. And my daughter, will she also have legal problems? That depends. If she cooperates with the investigation and testifies against the other conspirators, it is possible she will only receive a warning. But if it is proven she actively participated in the intimidation plans, she could also face charges. That afternoon, while I rested on Margaret's couch with a pillow propped against my broken ribs, I received a completely unexpected visit. It was Robert. But he came alone and with a completely different attitude from what he had had at the restaurant. "Father-in-law," he said with a humble voice, "I know I have no right to be here, but I need to talk to you." "What do you want?" "Robert, have you come to threaten me?" "No, father-in-law. I came to apologize and explain the truth about everything that happened." Margaret, who was in the kitchen making tea, came out immediately upon hearing voices. "John, do you want me to call the police?" "No. Margaret, let him talk. I want to hear what excuses he has." Robert sat on the edge of the chair, clearly nervous. "Father-in-law, the truth is, this was all my fault. I was the one who convinced Emily and David that you owed them part of the money." "Why did you do that?" "Robert, because we are in a desperate financial situation. We owe more than $120,000 between credit card debts, bank loans, and money I owe to very dangerous people." For the first time, I could see genuine fear in his eyes. Dangerous people. Yes, father-in-law. People who do not accept excuses and who have threatened to hurt my family if I do not pay soon. Finally, I was hearing the truth, and it was even worse than I imagined. "And you thought the solution was to steal my money." "It was not stealing. Father-in-law, I genuinely believed you had a moral obligation to help your family. But I realized I was wrong when I saw what happened to you yesterday." "You realized you needed to see your brother-in-law break my ribs to realize you were doing something wrong." Robert lowered his head, clearly ashamed. "Father-in-law, I came here to ask for your forgiveness and to tell you I will testify in your favor at the trial. I will confess all my participation in this horrible plan." His words surprised me. "Why would you do that? Do not you realize that could cause you legal problems because it is the right thing, father-in-law, and because I hope that maybe one day you can find in your heart a way to forgive my wife. Emily let herself be influenced by me, but deep down, she loves you." Robert's words left me completely bewildered. During all these days, I had been so focused on protecting myself and dealing with the betrayal that I had not had time to really process my own feelings toward my children. Yes, I was furious and hurt, but underneath all that anger, there was still love, a deeply wounded love. But love after all. "Robert," I said after several minutes of silence, "I appreciate you coming to apologize, but apologies do not heal broken ribs or erase death threats." "I know, father-in-law, and I do not expect you to forgive me immediately. I just wanted you to know the truth, and I wanted to ask you something." "What?" "When all this is over, when David gets out of jail and when we have paid for our mistakes, would there be any possibility of rebuilding this family? Not because of the money, but because your grandchildren need you in their lives." The mention of my grandchildren hit me directly in the heart. Throughout this nightmare, I had tried not to think about them. about how all this would affect them. They were innocent children who were not to blame for the terrible decisions their parents had made. "My grandchildren will always be welcome in my life," I said firmly. "But that does not mean I will automatically forgive their parents. I understand, father-in-law. I just ask that over time you consider the possibility." After Robert left, Margaret and I were silent for a long time. Finally, she broke the silence with a question I had been avoiding thinking about. "John, what are you going to do with the money now?" It was the first time someone had asked me that question without ulterior motives, without trying to get something from me. Margaret was asking out of genuine curiosity and because she cared about my well-being. "Margaret, I think it is time I tell you what my plans really were for this money." I settled better on the couch, trying to find a position that did not hurt so much, and told my dear friend the secret I had been keeping since the day I received the purchase offer. "Do you remember my sister Anna?" "Of course. The one who died of cancer 4 years ago. Before she died, Anna made me promise something. She made me promise that if I ever had the resources to do so, I would help other women who were going through the same thing she went through." Margaret looked at me attentively, waiting for me to continue. "Anna had to sell the house, the car, and even our mother's jewelry to pay for her cancer treatments. In the end, it was not enough, and she died in debt. And without having received all the treatments she needed, tears began to roll down my face as I remembered my younger sister, who had fought so bravely against that terrible disease. My plan was to use the money from the sale to create a fund that would help low-income women who had cancer. Not all the money, of course. Part I would keep for my own security. But most would be to fulfill the promise I made to Anna." Margaret was silent for several seconds, and when she finally spoke, she had tears in her eyes. "Oh, John, you are an incredible man. And to think your children wanted to steal that money that was going to help so many people in need. Margaret, the saddest thing of all is that if they had asked me with respect and affection about my plans, maybe I would have found a way to help them, too. But they never gave me the opportunity. They just assumed they had a right to my money and tried to take it by force. Are you going to go ahead with your original plans?" "Yes. Margaret, more than ever. This experience has taught me the importance of helping people who really need it, and not people who simply want to live beyond their means." The next day, I received a call from my lawyer with news about the case. "Mr. Harrison, I have important updates. Your son David has pleaded guilty to all charges and accepted a sentence of 3 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 months if he completes a rehabilitation program for alcoholism and gambling addiction. And the other men, the 2 received longer sentences because they already had records. The main organizer of the plan to declare you incompetent received 6 years. And my daughter, your daughter decided to cooperate completely with the investigation and testify against all the others. In exchange, she received only probation and the obligation to do community service for 18 months. Community service, yes. Specifically working with elderly people in a nursing home. The judge thought it would be appropriate given the circumstances. That afternoon, while I was resting in Margaret's garden, I received an unexpected visit. It was Emily, but she looked completely different from how I had seen her in weeks. She had lost weight, had deep dark circles under her eyes, and wore simple clothes that looked old. "Dad," she told me with a barely audible voice, "I know I have no right to be here, but I needed to see you before starting my community service." "What do you want, Emily?" "I want to ask for forgiveness, Dad. Not an apology, but genuine forgiveness from daughter to father. She sat in a chair near me, but maintaining a respectful distance. Dad, these past few days, I have had a lot of time to think about everything that happened. And I realized that I not only failed as a daughter, but I transformed into a person I do not even recognize myself. Emily, words are easy. Actions are what count. I know, Dad. That is why I am not asking you to forgive me right now. I am just asking that maybe over time you might consider giving me a chance to show that I can be better. And Robert, are you still married to him? Emily looked down. We are getting divorced. I realized he was the one who manipulated me to act against you, and I cannot be married to someone who made me hurt my own father. Her words surprised me. I did not expect her to make such a drastic decision. And the children will stay with me, Robert agreed, because he knows his debts put him in danger. And he does not want to expose the children to those dangerous people. How are you going to support them alone? I got a part-time job at an office in addition to community service. It will not be easy, but I would rather live with financial difficulties than live with the guilt of what I did to you. For the first time in weeks, I could see my real daughter underneath all the greed and manipulation. She was the girl I had raised, the young woman she was before Robert's influence corrupted her. Emily, I have one condition to consider forgiving you someday. Whatever it is. Dad, I want you to get psychological therapy. I want you to understand how you became capable of betraying your own father. And I want you to make sure this never happens again. I've already started. Dad, it is part of the terms of my probation. But even if it was not mandatory, I would do it. And what are you going to tell my grandchildren about all this? I will tell the truth in an age-appropriate way for them. I will tell them their mother made very serious mistakes, that she hurt Grandpa and is working very hard to be a better person. After Emily left, I spent hours thinking about everything that had happened. My life had changed completely in the space of a few weeks. I had lost trust in my children. I was betrayed by my own family. I suffered physical injuries. But I also discovered an inner strength I did not know I had. That night, I called my lawyer to begin the process of creating the foundation in memory of my sister Anna. I decided to call it the Anna Hope Foundation, and dedicated specifically to helping low-income women who were fighting cancer. 4 months later, when my ribs had completely healed, I had the official inauguration ceremony of the foundation. Margaret was there with me, along with several neighbors and community members who had known Anna. To my surprise, Emily also came, but she stayed in the back of the event without approaching me. After the ceremony, she approached timidly. Dad, she told me, I just wanted to say, I am very proud of what you are doing. Aunt Anna would be happy to know her memory is helping so many women. Thank you. Emily, Dad, do you think one day we can have a normal relationship again? I looked at her for several seconds before answering. Emily, I do not think we will ever have the relationship we had before, because that relationship was based on a trust that was broken. But maybe with a lot of time and a lot of work, we can build something new. That is all I can ask for. Dad, 7 months later, I received a letter from David from jail. It was the first communication I had had with him since the day he broke my ribs. Dad, the letter said, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that every day in this jail, I think about what I did to you, and every day I hate myself more for it. I am in a recovery program for alcoholics and gambling addicts. And for the first time in years, I am beginning to understand how sick I was. I am not asking you to forgive me, because I know that will take a long time if it ever happens. I just wanted you to know that I deeply regret it, and that when I get out of here, I will dedicate the rest of my life to trying to make up for the damage I caused you. When I finished reading the letter, I realized that for the first time since everything had begun, I did not feel anger toward my children. I had not completely forgiven them, and maybe never would entirely. But I had found something like peace. Today, 18 months after selling the farm, my life is completely different. The Anna Hope Foundation has helped more than 40 women with their cancer treatments. Emily finished her community service and has shown herself to be a responsible mother who is raising my grandchildren well. David will be out of jail in 7 months, and although I do not know if we can rebuild our relationship, at least I know he is working to become a better person. And I learned something fundamental, that money is not the most important thing in life, but self-respect is. I learned it is okay to say no, even to family. I learned that protecting what is yours does not make you a selfish person, but a strong person. And above all, I learned that sometimes the most painful mistakes can lead you to discover who you really are and what you are capable of. My name is John Harrison. I am 63 years old, and I finally learned to value myself as much as I have always valued others. Did you enjoy my story? And which city are you listening from? Let us meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can continue bringing more stories like this. I already thank you very much for the support. I am waiting for your comments about the story. Do not forget to subscribe to Revenge with Thomas. Until the next life story, with affection and respect.